There comes a quiet hour in every life when the heart grows tired of carrying what it was never meant to hold. It arrives without permission. Sometimes it comes after years of trying to be enough for everyone except yourself. Sometimes it follows 1,000 silent sacrifices, 1,000 swallowed tears, and 1,000 mornings when you look into the mirror searching for a stranger who used to know your name. Listen carefully to that quiet hour, because it is not your weakness calling. It is your soul asking to come home. From the day we first learned to love, we are often taught that goodness is measured by how much of ourselves we give away. We applaud exhaustion as if it were honor. We celebrate endless sacrifices, though empty hands and an empty spirit are signs of greatness. We become experts at comforting others, while forgetting the language that comforts our own hearts. We pour from our cups until nothing remains but the sound of a hollow echo. And then we wonder why joy no longer recognizes our doorstep. But life has never asked you to disappear in order to prove your worth. You were not born to spend your days apologizing for existing. You were not created to shrink so another person's comfort could grow larger than your own peace. You were not given breath merely to survive every storm while pretending the rain never touched your skin. You came into this world carrying something sacred, something no disappointment can erase and no rejection can steal. Your value existed before anyone praised you, before anyone doubted you, before anyone loved you, and before anyone walked away. It is never dependent on applause, approval, or permission. There is a light within every human being that waits patiently beneath fear. It does not shout. It does not compete. It simply remains faithful through every heartbreak, every failure, every lonely season. It whispers the same truth again and again. You are enough before you prove anything. Imagine how different your life becomes the moment you believe that whisper. Imagine waking each morning without the burden of earning your right to exist. Imagine choosing kindness without abandoning yourself. Imagine saying yes because your heart is willing, not because your guilt is louder than your wisdom. Imagine understanding that boundaries are not walls built from anger, but gardens protected by love. Nothing in this world is worth losing your peace, not an argument that steals your sleep, not an opinion that changes with the wind, not a relationship that demands you become smaller every day, not success that leaves your spirit bankrupt, not perfection that never arrives. Peace is not something you discover after everything becomes easy. Peace is the decision to stop negotiating with everything that teaches you to betray yourself. There will always be voices asking for more than you can give. Some will ask for your time. Others will ask for your silence. Some will ask for your dreams because they are uncomfortable watching you reach for them. Others will ask for your identity because they fear the courage of someone who knows who they are. You cannot answer every voice without losing the sound of your own. The strongest people are not those who carry every burden without complaint. They are the ones who know which burdens were never theirs to carry. Wisdom is not found in endless endurance. Wisdom is found in holy discernment, in recognizing the difference between love and self-erasure, between compassion and surrendering your dignity. Your heart is not a battlefield where everyone else's expectations deserve to wage war. It is a sanctuary. Guard it with tenderness, protect it with courage, fill it with truth. Because every time you choose yourself with honesty instead of fear, every time you refuse to exchange your serenity for someone else's chaos, every time you remember your worth in a world determined to measure it by impossible standards, you become living proof that a peaceful soul is stronger than a restless crowd. The world will continue to rush. It will reward noise and urgency. It will tempt you to believe that your value depends on how much you accomplish, how much you endure, or how many people approve of you. But beneath all that noise, your soul will keep offering the same gentle invitation. Come back to yourself. Return to the place where your joy is not borrowed. Return to the place where your kindness includes your own reflection. Return to the place where your peace is no longer the price you pay to belong. For the greatest home you will ever find is not built from the opinions of others. It is built within the quiet courage of a heart that finally decides, without apology and without fear, to value itself first. There is a difference between being kind and disappearing. Many people spend years believing that love is measured by how much they can endure, how much they can give away, and how little they ask for in return. They become so accustomed to placing everyone else's comfort before their own that they no longer recognize the quiet ache growing inside them. They answer every request, forgive every wound without allowing themselves to heal, and continue pouring from an empty cup because somewhere along the way they learned that exhaustion was proof of goodness. But constant self-sacrifice is not the same as love. Love does not require you to abandon yourself. Compassion does not demand that you silence your own needs until they become whispers you can no longer hear. The heart was never designed to survive by feeding everyone else while starving. Even the strongest spirit begins to fade when it is denied the kindness it so freely offers to others. Self-compassion begins with a simple but unfamiliar question: what do I need? For many people, those words feel uncomfortable. They have spent so much of their lives asking what everyone else needs that they have forgotten how to listen inward. They know how to comfort a friend, encourage a family member, or stand beside someone in pain. Yet when sorrow visits their own heart, they often respond with criticism instead of tenderness. They expect themselves to recover instantly, to remain strong without rest, and to carry burdens without complaint. Imagine speaking to yourself the way you speak to someone you deeply love. You would not call them a failure because they made one mistake. You would not tell them they are unworthy because they experienced rejection. You would not measure their entire life by one difficult season. You would remind them that they are human, that growth takes time, and that every person deserves patience while becoming who they are meant to be. Why should your own heart receive anything less? The voice that lives within you shapes every experience you have. If that voice is constantly harsh, nothing you achieve will ever feel enough. Every success will seem too small. Every accomplishment will be overshadowed by what remains unfinished. Every mistake will become evidence against your worth instead of an opportunity to learn. A person can receive praise from the world and still feel empty if the conversation inside their own mind is filled with relentless judgment. Self-compassion changes that conversation. It teaches you to acknowledge your imperfections without allowing them to define your identity. It reminds you that making mistakes does not erase your value. It allows you to grow without believing that you must first hate yourself into becoming better. Many people believe they must earn rest. They tell themselves they will slow down after one more achievement, one more promotion, one more milestone, one more responsibility. Yet, life has a way of adding another mountain the moment one has been climbed. If your peace depends on reaching a finish line that constantly moves, you will spend your life running without ever arriving. Rest is not a reward for perfection. It is a necessity for becoming whole. Your body carries every moment your mind refuses to process. Every disappointment you ignore, every emotion you suppress, every expectation you force yourself to meet leaves an imprint somewhere within you. Sometimes it becomes exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. Sometimes it appears as anxiety, tension, or a quiet sadness that seems to have no obvious cause. The body often speaks the truths the heart has been afraid to admit. Self-compassion invites you to pause before your body is forced to demand it. It allows you to recognize fatigue without calling yourself weak. It encourages you to step back without believing you are falling behind. It reminds you that slowing down is sometimes the wisest form of progress, because clarity rarely arrives in the middle of constant exhaustion. There will always be people who expect you to keep giving because they have grown comfortable receiving. They may not even realize the cost you have been paying. They have become accustomed to your availability, your patience, your generosity, and your willingness to solve problems that were never yours alone. The moment you begin caring for yourself, some may misunderstand your boundaries as selfishness because they benefited from your lack of them. Do not let misunderstanding convince you that you are doing something wrong. Choosing yourself does not mean rejecting others. It means refusing to reject yourself. It means understanding that your dreams deserve attention, your emotions deserve respect, and your well-being deserves protection. It means recognizing that your kindness becomes more genuine when it is offered freely, rather than from obligation or fear. There is remarkable strength in admitting that you are tired. There is courage in saying you need time to recover. There is wisdom in acknowledging that your heart cannot continue carrying every disappointment as though it were weightless. These admissions are not signs of defeat. They are signs that you are finally listening to yourself instead of constantly performing for the expectations of others. Every person carries invisible wounds. Some were formed in childhood through impossible expectations. Others appeared after betrayal, disappointment, or years of believing they had to earn love through performance. These wounds often create the habit of overgiving because somewhere deep inside there remains the hope that if enough is sacrificed, acceptance will finally feel secure. Yet, acceptance purchased through self-abandonment never lasts. It always asks for more. Another compromise, another silence, another dream postponed, another piece of yourself placed on the altar of someone else's approval. Self-compassion gently interrupts that cycle. It whispers that your existence is not a debt you must keep repaying. Your worth is not determined by how exhausted you become, while serving everyone else. Your value has never depended upon how many pieces of yourself you are willing to surrender. When you begin treating yourself with patience, something remarkable happens. Your relationships become healthier because they are built upon honesty rather than resentment. Your decisions become clearer because they are guided by wisdom instead of guilt. Your confidence grows because it is rooted in self-respect instead of comparison. Even your failures lose much of their power because they are no longer interpreted as evidence that you are unworthy. You begin noticing the difference between responsibility and unnecessary burden. You recognize that you cannot rescue every person, solve every conflict, or carry every emotional weight placed before you. You learn that compassion sometimes means offering support, but it does not require sacrificing your own stability in the process. Every morning offers another opportunity to become a little gentler with yourself. You can replace criticism with curiosity. Instead of asking why you are not enough, you can ask what lesson this moment is trying to teach. Instead of demanding perfection, you can celebrate progress. Instead of punishing yourself for being human, you can honor the courage it takes to keep growing despite uncertainty, disappointment, fear, and the countless moments when life asks you to begin again. Clears throat. There comes a moment in every life when the noise of the world becomes so overwhelming that you can no longer distinguish it from your own thoughts. Opinions arrive from every direction. Some are offered with kindness, others with judgment. Some come from people who genuinely care, while others come from those who have never walked a single step in your journey. If you spend enough time listening to every voice around you, you eventually lose the ability to recognize the one voice that has been with you since the beginning, your own. Your inner voice is not loud. It does not compete with the constant demands of the world. It does not shout over criticism or seek attention through dramatic displays. It speaks quietly, often in moments of stillness, reminding you of who you are beneath expectations, fears, and comparisons. Yet because it speaks with such gentleness, it is often ignored while louder voices claim authority over your choices. From childhood, many people are taught to seek approval before they learn to trust themselves. They are praised when they meet expectations and corrected when they step outside them. Slowly, they begin measuring their worth by the reactions of others instead of by the truth they carry within. They become skilled at reading rooms, predicting opinions, and adjusting their personalities to fit the comfort of those around them. Without realizing it, they begin living a life designed by applause rather than authenticity. There is nothing wrong with listening to advice. Wisdom can be found in the experiences of others. Guidance has the power to save us from unnecessary pain and help us grow beyond our limitations. But advice should never replace your own discernment. No one else has lived every chapter of your story. No one else knows the dreams that wake you in the middle of the night or the fears you quietly battle when no one is watching. There are parts of your journey that only you can understand because only you have carried them. The danger begins when outside opinions become more believable than your own inner knowing. You hesitate before making every decision because you fear disappointing someone. You silence your instincts because someone else appears more confident. You postpone your dreams because another person insists they are unrealistic. Over time, you become a stranger to yourself, asking everyone else for directions while forgetting that your own heart has been trying to guide you all along. Comparison only deepens this confusion. Every day, the world presents carefully arranged pictures of success, happiness, beauty, and achievement. It becomes easy to believe that everyone else has discovered the secret to life while you are somehow falling behind. But comparison is built upon incomplete stories. You see celebrations without witnessing sacrifices. You see confidence without knowing the years of doubt that came before it. You see accomplishments without seeing failures, disappointments, lonely nights, or moments when someone questioned whether they could continue. When you constantly compare your beginning to someone else's middle, your inner voice grows quieter. It starts questioning its own wisdom because it assumes everyone else must know something it does not. Yet your journey has never been meant to look identical to another person's path. A flower does not apologize for blooming in spring while another blooms in autumn. Neither one is late, neither one is early. Each unfolds according to its own season. Your intuition is one of the greatest gifts you possess. It notices what your eyes overlook and understands what logic cannot always explain. There have likely been moments when something deep within you urged caution, even though everything appeared perfect on the surface. There have also been moments when your heart encouraged you to move forward despite uncertainty because it recognized possibility before your mind could explain it. Learning to trust that quiet wisdom requires practice because it asks you to believe what cannot always be proven immediately. Fear often disguises itself as practicality. It tells you to remain where you are because change is dangerous. It convinces you that disappointing yourself is easier than risking the disappointment of others. It whispers that staying silent is safer than speaking honestly. Yet fear has a remarkable ability to borrow the language of reason while quietly stealing your confidence. The opinions of others are often shaped by their own experiences rather than by your potential. Someone who has learned to fear failure may discourage your ambition because it reminds them of opportunities they never pursued. Someone who struggles with self-worth may question your confidence because they cannot imagine believing in themselves. Someone who has accepted limitations may become uncomfortable watching another person step beyond them. Their perspective reflects the boundaries of their own life, not the possibilities of yours. When you understand this, criticism begins to lose much of its power. You realize that not every opinion deserves equal weight. Some comments reveal more about the speaker than about the person receiving them. This does not mean ignoring every difficult truth. Constructive feedback can be valuable. Honest correction can strengthen character. But there is a profound difference between receiving wisdom with humility and surrendering your identity to every passing opinion. Silence becomes one of your greatest teachers. In silence, the expectations of the world begin to fade. The constant comparisons lose their urgency. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts settle. The answers you have been searching for often emerge not because someone finally gave them to you, but because you created enough space to hear what your own heart had been saying all along. Your values become the compass that keeps your inner voice steady. When you know what truly matters to you, outside opinions become easier to evaluate. Instead of asking whether everyone approves, you begin asking whether your choices align with the person you hope to become. This shift changes everything because it replaces people-pleasing with purpose. It transforms uncertainty into quiet conviction. There will always be moments when your path is misunderstood. Some people may question decisions that bring you peace simply because they would have chosen differently. Others may expect you to continue living according to the version of yourself they have become comfortable with. Growth often surprises those who expected you to remain the same. Your willingness to evolve may challenge the expectations others placed upon you. Not everyone will celebrate your courage. Some will mistake confidence for pride because they are unfamiliar with healthy self-respect. Others may interpret your boundaries as rejection because they benefited from your inability to say no. There may even be seasons when standing by your convictions feels lonely because very few people understand the direction your heart is leading you toward. Loneliness, however, is often temporary. Regret has a way of lasting much longer. Every time you silence your inner voice to satisfy someone else's expectations, you teach yourself that your truth is less important than their approval. Eventually, that habit becomes difficult to break because it feels safer to follow instructions than to trust your own judgment. The strongest confidence is rarely loud. It does not need constant validation because it is built upon self-awareness rather than applause. It allows you to admit mistakes without questioning your worth. It gives you permission to change your mind when you learn something new. It reminds you that growth is not weakness, but evidence that you are continuing to become wiser. As your inner voice grows stronger, your decisions become less dependent upon outside reactions. You stop explaining every choice in hopes of receiving permission. You stop defending every dream against unnecessary criticism. You recognize that some chapters of your life are meant to be lived before they are understood by anyone else. You become comfortable allowing your actions to speak where endless explanations never could. There is extraordinary peace in knowing who you are when no one is watching. There is freedom in making choices that honor your values even when they are unpopular. There is quiet strength in trusting yourself enough to walk a path that others cannot yet see. The world will continue offering opinions, predictions, warnings, and expectations, but none of those voices will ever know your heart as intimately as the one that has quietly walked beside you through every joy, every disappointment, every lesson, every unanswered question, every moment of doubt, every unexpected blessing, and every step that has shaped the person you are still becoming. The day you begin to value yourself first is not the day you become someone new. It is the day you stop abandoning the person you have always been. Nothing magical happens overnight. The does not suddenly become easier, and every challenge does not disappear. What changes is the way you meet life. You stop measuring your worth by circumstances that constantly shift, and you begin standing on a foundation that no disappointment can easily shake. For so long, many people search for fulfillment in places that were never meant to provide it. They believe another achievement will finally make them feel complete. They imagine that if enough people admire them, if enough doors open, if enough dreams come true, then peace will naturally follow. Yet, life has a quiet way of revealing that external success can never replace internal acceptance. A person may possess admiration, wealth, recognition, or influence and still feel disconnected from themselves if they have never learned to appreciate their own value. Valuing yourself first changes the questions you ask. Instead of wondering whether you are enough, you begin asking whether the life you are living reflects what truly matters to you. Instead of chasing every opportunity simply because it appears impressive, you start choosing experiences that bring meaning rather than endless exhaustion. You realize that being busy is not the same as being fulfilled, and being admired is not the same as being at peace. There is a remarkable freedom that comes when your identity is no longer built upon other people's opinions. Praise becomes something you appreciate rather than something you depend upon. Criticism becomes something you evaluate rather than something that defines you. You begin understanding that both compliments and judgments pass quickly, but your relationship with yourself remains every single day. The future begins to look different because your decisions are no longer driven by fear. Fear often convinces people to remain in places where they are no longer growing. It encourages them to settle for relationships that diminish them, careers that drain them, or routines that slowly silence their spirit. Not because these things bring joy, but because they appear familiar. Familiarity can become a comfortable prison when it replaces courage. When you value yourself, courage begins to outweigh comfort. You become willing to leave situations that repeatedly rob you of peace. You understand that staying where your soul is constantly shrinking is not loyalty, it is neglect. Growth requires movement, and movement often requires letting go of what no longer belongs in the life you are creating. The future waiting for you is shaped by the choices you make today. Every boundary you establish teaches people how to treat you. Every moment you honor your needs strengthens your self-respect. Every time you refuse to compromise your values for temporary approval, you build a life that reflects integrity instead of insecurity. These decisions may seem small in the moment, but they quietly transform the direction of your entire journey. There's beauty in discovering that happiness is no longer dependent upon perfect circumstances. Life will always contain uncertainty. Unexpected losses, disappointments, delays, and changes are woven into every human story. Waiting for a problem-free life before allowing yourself to experience joy means postponing joy indefinitely. When you value yourself, you begin carrying peace within you, instead of searching for it in conditions you cannot control. This inner security changes your relationships as well. You no longer seek people to complete you because you have learned to appreciate your own company. Loneliness no longer frightens you as deeply because solitude has become a place where you reconnect with yourself instead of a reminder of what is missing. As a result, you choose relationships based on mutual respect rather than emotional desperation. Healthy love grows naturally in the presence of healthy self-worth. It allows honesty without fear, kindness without self-erasure, and commitment without losing individuality. You stop believing that love requires constant sacrifice of your identity. Instead, you recognize that genuine connection allows both people to grow, rather than demanding that one continually becomes smaller for the comfort of the other. Your dreams also begin to change. Some ambitions lose their appeal because you recognize they were built upon proving yourself instead of expressing yourself. Other dreams become stronger because they arise from your authentic passions rather than from the expectations placed upon you. Success begins to carry a different meaning. Instead of asking whether others are impressed, you begin asking whether your life feels aligned with your deepest values. Gratitude becomes easier to practice because comparison no longer controls your perspective. When you stop measuring your journey against someone else's, you become more aware of the blessings already surrounding you. Ordinary moments regain their beauty. Quiet mornings, meaningful conversations, moments of laughter, acts of kindness, and opportunities to learn become sources of genuine fulfillment instead of unnoticed details hidden beneath endless striving. You also become more forgiving toward yourself. You stop expecting perfection from someone who is simply trying to grow. Mistakes become teachers instead of lifelong labels. Failure becomes part of your education rather than evidence that you should stop trying. Every setback carries lessons that strengthen your wisdom instead of destroying your confidence. As your self-worth becomes more secure, your energy naturally shifts toward what truly deserves your attention. You invest less time trying to convince people of your value because you no longer question it yourself. You spend less energy replaying conversations, defending every decision, or seeking reassurance from those who cannot offer it. That energy becomes available for creativity, learning, healing, meaningful relationships, and purposeful work. Life becomes less about proving and more about becoming. You stop chasing an image of perfection and begin embracing the ongoing process of growth. Every experience, whether joyful or painful, contributes something valuable to your understanding of yourself. You discover strengths you never noticed because they were hidden beneath years of self-doubt. You uncover talents that had been waiting patiently beneath fear. You begin trusting your resilience because you have witnessed yourself survive challenges you once believed would break you. The person who values themselves first is not someone who believes they are superior to others. Humility remains an essential part of genuine confidence. You recognize that every human being deserves dignity, including yourself. Respect becomes something you both give and expect. Compassion extends outward without forgetting to include the person standing in your own shoes. There are still difficult days. There are moments when old fears return, when uncertainty clouds your vision, and when the temptation to seek approval quietly reappears. Growth is rarely a straight line. There are seasons of remarkable progress followed by moments that require beginning again. Yet, each time you return to your own worth, the journey becomes a little shorter because you know the way home. The life that awaits you is not defined by endless perfection, but by increasing freedom. Freedom to speak honestly without constant fear of rejection. Freedom to rest without guilt. Freedom to pursue dreams without asking permission from every passing opinion. Freedom to walk away from what diminishes your spirit. Freedom to welcome opportunities that reflect your values instead of merely satisfying expectations. You begin waking each morning with a quieter mind because you are no longer carrying the impossible responsibility of pleasing everyone. You discover that peace is not found by controlling every outcome, but by remaining true to yourself regardless of how circumstances unfold. Confidence no longer depends upon applause because it has become rooted in character. Joy no longer waits for extraordinary moments because it has learned to flourish in ordinary days. Hope no longer feels fragile because it grows from the understanding that your value is never dependent on perfection, popularity, possessions, achievements, or the changing opinions of the world, but upon the unshakable truth that a life built on self-respect, inner peace, courage, compassion, authenticity, and unwavering self-worth becomes a life that no longer needs to chase validation in order to believe it is already enough.